what? I'm going to do my very best for you. So yeah, thank you all. I've started to see your comments and your actions and your personal messages in response to the book, and these things always make me really happy. But it's a funny thing because I guess I finished writing this book um, right before Christmas, which is very pleasant. I took Christmas off, and then I was editing it, and I can turn the music off. Just us now. And then I was editing it in January and February. But I was doing story design probably for most of last year, and um, and I've been thinking about and conceiving this book for probably 2 to 3 years. So the funny thing is you write all this stuff and you kind of forget about it. You set yourself these challenges, and you have these scenes and these vignettes and these character journey and arc things and these thematic things you want to do, and then you pull them off and you kind of forget about it. And you're like, okay, that was really hard, but once you're on the other side of it, as I always say, everything's always easy. Everything's easy. Every book is easy once you've written it. But you kind of forget. And so the thrill for me seeing your reviews and your comments and whatnot, it's not just that you like the book, which is a relief because you never know if the book sucks for sure. It's not that you have enjoyed it and are raving about it and leaving me plenty of nice comments. It's the things that you're raving about, which is how to put it. It's not the action scenes, it's not the zombies and it's not the tactics or the gunfire. It's the really hard things that I was trying to do with this book that you're responding to. And that is incredibly heartening. So like you just completely get it. You get what I was trying to do. And I can't overstate what a blessing that is as an author to have readers who really, are picking up what I'm putting down, to borrow a phrase, and get what I'm trying to do. So thank you for all your reviews and thank you for everything you've said and your messages of support. And it made me really happy. Yeah, it's been good. So the book just came out 5 days ago. As some of you will have seen, and I hope you saw my uh, video about this, which I was very pleased with. And we're going to do some cover things in this. Uh, you bear with me. Yeah, so I woke up like 2 days ago and was over the moon and discovered the book is a number one new release in dystopian science fiction. And then more gratifyingly, it's easier to hit a number one new release, but we were also a number one bestseller in war fiction. And I figured I had to turn these little banners on and then turn them off because it seemed like a little self-congratulatory to have them on the whole time in the chat. But yeah, that was cool. It was not quite what I did back in the day when I would have like multiple series and then they would just hang there for weeks. But it's still incredibly gratifying to get that orange ribbon and to have that achievement and to feel like, my best work is still ahead of me and we can still sell books and like tear up the charts and do cool things and like make a splash. And that's all down to you and rushing out and buying the book on launch day and during launch week. And yeah, I can't overstate how grateful I am for that. So there was that. Obviously, we're here to look at video checking. Matt, welcome. Hi there. Hi there back. Chance says newt, 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 which I don't know what that means, but she said something else about it. Rise up, newts of the Zulu Alpha. I'm lost, but maybe she can elaborate. Matt says congratulations. Thanks a lot. Yeah, well, it's doesn't happen without you. Like you buy the books, I just write the books. Um, and it says the sound is much better on a computer with headphones. Okay, and I'm going to try to keep enunciating and modulating because I have a terrible habit of mumbling. And speaking in a monotone, which is probably even more likely given the day drinking that happened lamentably before this. More coffee, more coffee. Anyway, we're all just winging it. So Pete and Ant want to know about the Arisen movie. Ant says, so be honest, is anyone coming to you to make the Arisen movie into any sort of movie, Arisen series into any sort of movie? God, I sound drunk. I'm going to sharpen up. Michael Bay would have a field day with the battle scene on the JFK carrier. Yeah, I love these questions, and I hate them. The how to answer. The first thing to be said is that I have absolutely no control over this. I get messages from people all the time. They're like, "When are you going to do the movie?" I'm like, "Well, let me just get $200 million together and 1,000 of my best friends who are like filmmakers and all the artisans required to make a movie these days, and I'll just bang that up for you." Um, yeah, Hollywood comes to you, and the first thing I learned about Hollywood is that saying a lot of ums. I'm going to cut this out. First thing I learned about Hollywood is that nothing happens ever, nothing ever. There's just talk, talk, talk. So a few years ago, there was some interest from Hollywood and from a couple of quarters, and yeah, it was thrilling and it was compelling enough that I actually took a crack at adapting a screenplay version of the main series for book one, which was an incredible exercise and a lot of fun and very educational for me. But of course, nothing ever happened, and uh, I guess let's be vain. Like I know the quality of the work and the storytelling, and so I hear a lot like this would just be amazing to blow the doors off of everything that's on Netflix or Amazon Prime or particularly HBO, and I tend to agree. So in my head, there's always been this sort of 8 season HBO series, 10 episodes per series. It's going to cost $15 million an episode, and this is why this is never going to happen. So yeah, Michael Bay could blow the doors off the Battle of the JFK, but think about what it's going to cost to shoot that. We need an aircraft carrier. We need 10 million zombies. We need all these special operations. Yeah, just the one thing I've been intent on is that it will never be done on the cheap. Um, so it's just, kind of a waiting game and a crapshoot. And in my heart, I don't know if I believe it's going to happen, but I certainly hope it's going to happen. Um, yeah, and so what all I can do is keep telling the stories and keep putting these books out. And like the more I build so I do the storytelling, and then the more we build the series and the readership, the more likely it is that some development exec from HBO will fall in love with the series. I got contacted by, um, I'm sorry, Beth's just my girlfriend, my life partner, just jumped into the stream, and that's wonderful, but it's kind of weird and freaking me out. Hi, baby. I'm going to get to your question in a second. So, yeah, I can just the more likely it is that an HBO development exec will fall in love with it. And so some of the film interest from back whenever was I got contacted by a sort of A-list Hollywood screenwriter. I'm not going to name, but he knows who he is. And he said, like, are the film rights for this available? And I was like, well, yeah. And so I talked to his agents for 5 seconds at like ICM. And then he and I talked about the film rights for about 5 minutes and spent the subsequent 5 years talking about writing and storycraft and the writing life and how he blew up as a writer and as a human being and how I had blown up. And he became this wonderful sort of part-time unofficial mentor to me. And for that, I'll always be grateful. But there's some other Hollywood stuff that could be said. I guess the short, terrible answer is absolutely nothing's happening right now. But hope springs eternal, or to borrow a line, hope never dies. So hopefully we'll get there. I've still got to cut out the ums. I'm doing that. Bear with me. Maybe some water versus coffee, so I'm not so sticky. Okay, I shouldn't keep the girlfriend on hold, or I'll pay for that later. Beth Hamilton asks, does it feel different writing a female protagonist over a male? Did you face any challenges? Yeah, great question. I've been accused of having, being in too tight, too closely in touch with my feminine side. Yeah, I have no issues with it all. No one will have read this because no one's read this book, but my second novel was not only a female protagonist, but it was written in the first person. So I had friends who read it and they're like, "This is really weird hearing you talking as a woman." And I said, "Well, if that weirds you out, just prepend she said quotation mark to the beginning of the book and then a quotation mark at the end of the book, and you're all set." So as a fiction writer, you're basically doing ventriloquism all day long. You're always in the voice, in the head, in the mind of somebody you've made up. And so that becomes very natural, right? And so there are 8 billion characters in Arisen, and I sometimes look back in awe at how many people effectively I've created. But yeah, so they're all different from me. So it's been said that every character in a book is like a tiny little refracted part of the author, and I think that's true. But all these people are like unlike me in so many different ways, not least being, incredibly accomplished pro level athletes, tier one military operators, which I'm obviously not. That you're yeah, you're inhabiting voices and heads all the time. And so someone being a woman is different from me in a certain way, but all these characters are different from me in other ways. So yeah, I don't know. Don't I don't think of any particular challenges. And then she's quite obviously a badass, right? So she's just another tier one operator in many ways. But I love this character so much, and as some of you will have seen me say before, as I was writing Ops V1, like I just woke up every morning thrilled to get to work on that book and to spend that time with that character. And then in Ops V2, of course, and some of you will see me say this elsewhere, the challenge was fixing this profoundly broken person, and the challenges of that were extraordinary. And I'd love to talk more about that, but I don't want to babble too much without, taking questions. Chance clarifies, Newt was the comparison the female lead of your operator series made of the little girls. Um, sorry, it's scrolling away from me. She kept meeting to the little girl in the Alien movie. Yeah, okay, of course, yeah. The Bluebell comparison to Newt was fairly overt in both books. Um, Funny enough, my A-list Hollywood screenwriter buddy actually issued me the following challenge. He said, "Could you write an entire book without an aliens reference?" And I thought that was a pretty good suggestion and an interesting challenge. So that was actually book 13, The Siege, where there were zero aliens references, but there was an alien reference. And then I got back to business as usual. It's a take I keep coming back to. Matt says, I would love to see if they did a series or a movie adaptation of Arisen. Who would play Fick? Yeah, the game about like who would play whom is it's a fun game for you guys. I kind of stay out of it for some reason. I Some people write, for instance, screenplays with particular actors in mind, but so I like to hear what you guys come up with, and every once in a while this will come up in various places online where people play that game, and people have taken it very seriously. So they've done like these matrices of like screenshots of the actors and who they would play. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I think the most recent suggestion from Fick was I should remember the actor's name because he's great, but he's Colonel Badass in the Avatar films. He'd probably be a pretty good pick. He says, please keep doing them. There's so many of my friends now reading the series. Yeah, and I hit this note all the time, and Pete, you've struck that bell. Uh, yeah, basically the way I get to keep doing this for a living is by you recommending the books to other people because it's word of mouth alone that sells books. And so every time I see that, um, yeah, Pete's saying so many of my friends now reading the series. That's why I get to have this job, and I am so, so grateful. I like can't even stress that enough. And I don't want to like send you out there and put you to work like recommending the books, but because your enthusiasm causes you to tell people that they should check the series out, that's it. That's why I get up every morning and keep making up these crazy ass stories. So I really, really appreciate that, and my thanks can never be enough. But I'll keep saying it over and over again. Uh, Chan says you cover most of the world in your novels. Only places left are South America, Southeast Asia, and Antarctica. Wonder which you'll explore next. Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Like, the Zulu Alpha happened all over the world. So sometimes people suggest various special operations units in places I haven't covered, but you can't be everywhere and you can't do everything. So yeah, I don't know. All kinds of possibilities. Although that said, I'm going to say something you're going to hate, which is that this may be the end of the road for Arisen, but I'm just going to put a pin in that for now. Pete says, any chance of a Fic perspective book? Yeah, I don't know. Origin stories are kind of cool. I don't want to throw into the Marvel universe for all kinds of good reasons. Um, the good news is, from everyone's point of view, is that I thought Fic was done. So the thing about the main series was all these characters had to complete these fairly huge and meticulously put together character arcs. Basically, they had to become the heroes they needed to be and solve their personal problems to become the heroes needed to save the world. And so the events of the plot are tied in very closely with the character development and the character arc and the character journey. And so in the main series, all those guys, Predator, Handon, Fick, Allie, Homer, had the greatest adventures of their lives, and they completed their journeys. And so everyone wants to see them again. And I'm like, what do I have to add to these characters? Like, they're done, they had the journey, and I could still screw them up, but I'm not sure I have anything to add to them. So I love and appreciate that you want to spend more time with the characters that you're fond of, but I was very reticent to bring them back. So in Raiders, the first prequel series, the idea was that I would bring back Vic, but he would be a walk-on character. He'd come on, say some shit, and then walk off again. But it was somebody else's story. It was Yaz's story and his turn, and maybe some of the new Marines. But then and you might like this, but Fick being Fick, he just would not be a walk-on character. He wouldn't sit down. He wouldn't shut up. He just like kept muscling onto the stage, and I couldn't keep him off of the center of the stage. So I had to come up with a whole new character arc for him before the character arc. In the main series, of course, he had to come to grips with how he would sacrifice all his Marines and the guilt of leaving the LT behind. And in Raiders, he had to basically learn how to be a leader who put the mission in front of the men. He had to go from being a team sergeant to being a team leader, and that became his arc, and that worked out really well. But then I thought, okay, that's it. That's like no more Fick. Fick's done it all twice. He's gone from beginning to end of two complete series. And then a funny thing happened on the way to the forum, which is I realized that you may or may not be aware of this, but Operators is obviously USOC in Britain, and where it climaxes is at the final battle at CENTCOM because of USOC ends up there. I'm like, wait, who's also there? Oh yeah, Fick. And wouldn't it be cool to have Yael meet Fick and have a few blistering scenes with him? There's no way I could resist that. So there's going to be scenes with Fick and Yael, and there's going to be some other tie-ins from the last book of Operators that I think you're going to find pretty interesting. And I've already got some really blistering Fickisms queued up for that. All the stuff will have happened in book 14 just off stage, so we're going to go to like other scenes in book 14, and that will be Fick's last hurrah. Matt says, I do love the Star Set reference, and I really appreciate that. As you're all very aware, very well aware, the music is absolutely a critical input to writing the books. And at this point, Starset is my very, very favorite band. And so I just couldn't keep them out of there. And a few of you are also Starset fans, and you caught the references. There was I think the LT was listening to them on his beach run in Raiders, and then the Colonel Eshel in Ops V1 quoted them without fighting them, so you had to actually catch the reference, and Matt did, and I love that. Ant says, "Thank you all for the questions. Like this keeps me from coming up with material." Ant says the Raiders series revolved around Yaz, who was lost and broken at the end. He just faded into the abyss. I see a lot of similarities in Yael. Will you ever come back to Yaz's story? Yeah, great question. I've seen it a few times. I appreciate where it's coming from, but here's the thing, and I think Ant, it might have been you who really kind of twigged to this in one of the comments in the Arisen Survivors commune, I think. Someone did. I think it was you. But essentially, Yaz had this character arc that was an alienation plot. And I always conceived of Operators and Raiders as companion pieces. Um, Raiders is an alienation plot, Operators is a redemption plot. So these are two characters who are passing each other in opposite directions on their character arcs. So Yaz starts out believing in brotherhood and that finding a place to belong is everything and wanting to plant his flag, and then it just all keeps going wrong and he keeps fucking things up for himself. And in the end, yeah, he's lost and broken, just as you say, and alienated and cast out of the tribe. And that was very intentional. And I know it's a little dark and maybe not completely satisfying. We can imagine that he has a brighter future, maybe. But Yael, so I knew I was taking a risk by writing the alienation plot first. Like this character is not wholly sympathetic. He kind of can be a dick and again screws things up for himself a lot. But that's where he ended up. But I was trying to get to the point we're at now with Yael and Ops. Who is redeemed. She starts off thinking brotherhood is bullshit. The only way to survive is to be on your own, to be totally self sufficient, totally self reliant, keep moving, leave the weaker behind. And of course, she completely reverses direction. And getting her to do that, coming up with a convincing series of circumstances and events that would cause her to see the error of her ways, was the great challenge of Ops V2. But I'll leave that there for now. Um, I don't think I'm going to go back to Yaz. People like are always asking these questions like, will we see so and so again? And maybe, but maybe not. When you get to the end, there's kind of like an endpoint. Yeah, poor Yaz. So sorry about that. Chance says, I noticed in the operators books a lack of military usage of drones. Has the zombie apocalypse only just happened? So why aren't they used more in missions? Yeah, that's a fair question. I appreciate the tactical savvy or noose. Um, Drones are a funny thing. So when I was writing Ops V2, I ran into this issue that it's like how cell phones ruin horror movies. There's a whole funny thing on YouTube about it's like 100 clips of how the cell phone is explained away or destroyed, or there's no coverage because when you just call for help, it's very hard to have a horror movie. Like no one's in trouble, you just call for help. Drones are a little bit like that. Sometimes they make things a little too easy for our heroes. So I think there were a couple of like there's at least one occasion in Ops 2 where the drone had to go back due to mechanical difficulties. That may have happened twice actually, because if they could see everything that was coming, it's less surprising and less dramatic. Yeah, they're I try to be obviously very tech savvy and very current on military technology, but you can't do everything and you miss some tricks inevitably. There are drones. Maybe yeah, realistically the way that special operators use them now, just universally, probably they'd always be using them. And then there's the fact that civilization has collapsed. So like replacement parts, you don't have allies anymore. There are, range limitations. You can't land in farm bases blah blah blah. Yeah, Matt says the quote from the Starset quote was from Symbiotic. Well spotted. Yeah, that line kills me, and it would just seem to apply to Alan perfectly. And says, will Ops 3 be the final part of that series? And if so, what do you have in store after that? Yeah, initially I wasn't sure how long this series of books was going to be. Way early in the day, it was going to be 5 books like Raiders, and then I realized I needed to be writing longer books just for the audio because no one wants to spend an Audible token on a 6-hour book. So I was like, well, I'm writing surreal fiction. I can break it up any way I want. Sure, audiobook guys, I'll do longer books. So then I wasn't sure whether Ops was going to be 3 books or 4, and now I think it's 3. I think I can line it up in 3. It's going to be a really big, long, hard, blistering, challenging book with a lot of stuff and a lot of action. But yeah, I think Ops 3 is it. And then this is the tolling church bell, and I'm sorry for this, but I think the end of Ops is the end of Arisen. It's been an incredible run. It's been long. It's literally been 12, 13 years, and it's a lot of books. And I've been so lucky, and very few people can sustain a series to this length. For a while I was saying like, why quit Arisen? Because like any type of story I want to tell, I can tell in this universe. I've got the whole world. I've got the whole 2 years of Zulu Alpha to explore. I've got any special operations unit, and you really can tell any type of story in this world, in this genre. But I don't want to say all good things. But the thing is it just wraps up with such a perfect bow. So as I said, the end of Operators is also the end of the main series. They dovetail and overlap. Because as you recall, the Operators of USOC ended up on that rooftop fighting the final battle. And so we're going to get that whole battle again, that whole siege and the battle from Yael's perspective, from USOC's perspective, Echo Team, Charlie Team. Um, and it'll be pretty cool, but that will really feel like an ending. And honestly, I've got some ideas for a whole new series after this. Post zombie, I'm not going to say too much about it, but I've got a lot of really big kind of thrilling ideas. And special operations, military, action, fiction, adventure, thriller was always my bread and butter. And to a certain extent, zombies were a little bit of a diversion. And I wouldn't trade a thing. But Arisen was never really about the zombies or the zombie apocalypse. As Homer said very early in the series, like book 2, I think, he said, the least interesting thing about a zombie apocalypse is the zombies. I've always said it's axiomatic that all drama is human drama. So it's all about the people. And yeah, moving on, sadly, but I think you're going to like the new series, and I think everything you love about Arisen will shine through in a big way. And then just from a crassly commercial perspective, yeah, so zombie books have kind of had their day, and but like military action and thrillers sort of never get old, and I think there's a lot of room to move in there, and I'm really excited about what comes next. But focusing on bringing this thing up first. Pete says, "Come on, Michael. We all love Fick. Use your literary mastery to give us his backstory, how he entered the military and became the sarcastic badass we love." All right. Well, I'm listening, and I will think seriously upon that. Um, he does. And there's some great scenes like with Wesley in the end of the main series where he talks about his upbringing and being raised on military bases and mentored by Marines. And so yeah, I'm not making any promises, but anything's possible. And he is the most beloved character, so I know people would like that book. And says, shame you never got the D Boys involved in the Arisen series. Well, it's funny you mention that because yeah, we did. Um, there's definitely a tie-in. So Allie is the exact same character in both series. And then Homer was originally a different character. I really just borrowed his name for the Homer character in Arisen, and then I realized that was kind of stupid, and so I sort of retconned him to be the same character, and then they just melded together. Just required a little work in Odyssey to make them the same character. So they were the same character. Who else? Yeah, and then here's a little tidbit for you. So some of you will notice that D Boys is a two-book series, and the third book in that series has been coming next year, every year since I started writing Arisen. And I love that people like that series. I'm really fond of it, and I love that you want to see the third book in that series. And I'd love to get around to that. And again, the main reason I haven't is Crassly Commercial, which is that the Arisen books sell like an order of magnitude more than the D Boys books. But and here's your tidbit of trivia: the third book in Arisen, which is to be called Close Quarters Battle, is basically where Allie's mission to East Africa to try to stop Aliev, and she fails to destroy the weapons stock, and that's where the world ends. So it actually ties in completely. Um, but yeah, the other members of that team are not in the Arisen universe, so there's a separation. Okay, how we doing? We're technically an hour and 10 minutes from our start time, but we started about 30 minutes late. So I'm going to make another call for questions. Does anyone else get anything? These questions have been great. It's great to hang out with you, to see your comments, to spend this time with you. I may have stitched this up a little bit on the uptake by putting forbidden music in the stream and having Facebook suppress it. More questions. Thanks, guys. Which character do you think they relate to? Yeah, it's a funny one. I'm always like in my head, I'm kind of always the geeky guy. So Dr. Park maybe, and then in D Boys, Mike Brown. Um, it's always like um, fantasy projection. Like for a long time, all my books were like a fantasy of something cool I wish would happen to me, like getting involved with the special operations team. Who do I relate to? Yeah, I don't know. Pretty close to DIL, I think. Um, Although she's obviously a gigantic badass. And it says, I do love how you sprinkle movie quotes throughout the entire series. Yeah, you're all very indulgent with letting me get away with that. But here's the thing. I'm blessed to have, I'm okay, I'm going to turn the music off again because we got more questions. This is not an outro. Take this out. Yeah, so I'm blessed to have tons of readers who are like veterans or serving or even deployed personnel. And the one thing they tell me is like, yeah, you know that. All we do is just quote movies to each other all goddamn day long. So, like a layperson might say, you're overdoing that, but you, Ant, and the other readers seem to like it. And then the military guys are like, yeah, that's totally spot on, totally checks out. He says, thanks, Miss Michael. Great to do this for your fans. Oh man, um, my thanks are all to you. Like getting to do this is such a privilege and a pleasure, and I'm so lucky to have people who want to hear me spout on for an hour. Peter says, thanks for the talk. Um, yeah, thank you for showing up. I really appreciate it, and yeah, it means the world. As I've said, over and over again, I've got the best readers and fans any author could remotely hope for. So yeah, this is morbid, but my father was dying of cancer, and I said how lucky we were to get him, like for one last Christmas, and he's literally keeled over to like ill to sit up, and he looked at me and said, "I'm the lucky one." I always remember that. But in this case, I am definitely the lucky one, and I really appreciate it. Uh, and says, for all the days for my grandson to come visit, his timing sucks. I wish he could stay longer, but alas, he calls for food. I didn't. Okay, it's personal. I'm gonna leave that out. But great time to wind down. Appreciate you being here, Aunt. Appreciate the questions. Go be with your grandson. Um, Wish you the best too. I wish all of you the best. And yeah, I've actually never been more excited about my work. So I think there's some good stuff to come. And I really appreciate all your support of the series and the book and the launch and the live stream. And yeah, I hope you're all happy and safe. And I'm going to say goodnight. Lots of love and all the best. Love you guys. Take care. I gotta find this live stream button. I don't know where it is. This could go on a while. Okay.